First tonight, it's taken 14 months, but finally the Prime Minister has taken Pauline Hanson head-on. In a verbal assault on the leader of the One Nation Party, Mr Howard was careful not to offend the people who support her. And in fact, far from being wounded by the attack, Pauline Hanson says John Howard has just proved he's a closet supporter.
I think she's very brave for standing up and saying what she really believes in.
What she stands for is right, generally, and I just think the media's playing it all up and they're having a field day with it.
Up in Ipswich, it's showtime, and the people who voted for Pauline Hanson didn't take kindly to the Prime Minister's attack on their local member.
He's running her down, that she's got no answers for everything, and has he?
Do you think it was necessary for the Prime Minister to have a go at her like that?
No. Well, probably because he's probably a bit scared, I'd say.
Think he's scared of her popularity?
Yeah, more than likely. You know, I can't see any other reason for it.
I'm just astounded by it, really. He hasn't really come out with any scathing attack on me, and in some points he has actually agreed with me in what I have been saying.
Are you suggesting here that the Prime Minister is a closet Pauline Hanson supporter?
Look, I'd like the Prime Minister to be the leader that the people voted him in to be.
I know why some Australians have stopped to listen to the member for Oxley. I say to them, however, she has no answers at all to your problems. The Hanson cure would be much worse than the disease.
In his well-publicised and long-awaited attack on Mrs Hanson, the Prime Minister said she was wrong in many of the things she says.
She is wrong when she suggests that Aboriginals are not disadvantaged.
Does being an Aboriginal give you a monopoly on being disadvantaged? I think he needs to come and look in my seat of Oxley, plus many other seats throughout the country.
Even though there's been a truckload, if you like, of information to suggest that Aboriginal people are disadvantaged, that hasn't changed your opinion?
No, you must treat people on a needs basis. That's clearly what I've said.
She is wrong when she says that Australia is in danger of being swamped by Asians.
I don't think that we have the real figures with this. It is not being disclosed of the numbers that are using New Zealand as the back door to Australia.
Back at the Ipswich show, organisers called this bull One Nation after Mrs Hanson's newly formed party. And one of the first to try and right it was Mrs Hanson's long-time adversary, local councillor Paul Tully.
Well, beyond the bull, someone in the crowd said, think of Pauline Hanson, stick the spurs in, hang on like hell and let it buck away for 8 seconds.
OK. Squeeze at your feet. OK, squeeze.
While Mr Tully attempted to conquer One Nation, he had this to say about the Prime Minister's attempt to conquer its leader.
I think it was a joke, and too little, too late. I think he's trying to have two bob each way. They're not fair dinkum. They should come out and really start kicking her. What's happening is that he feels as though he has to respond, has to stand up to her, but he's not fair dinkum. I think deep down he probably supports most of what she's saying.
In responding to the views of the member for Oxley, it would, however, be a serious mistake to attack those who are apparently attracted to her as bigoted, narrow-minded and racist.
Perhaps the strongest criticism Mr Howard made was that you were exploiting people's fears, but you weren't offering any solutions.
Well, I haven't come up with the cure for all this because every time I've mentioned something, it just happens that the government brings us around in their policy.
You think they're stealing your policies?
Yes, I do, and a lot of issues that I've touched on, that the government has come along and starting to implement those.
In recent weeks, Hanson rallies have been thrown out of control as protesters abuse her supporters. How much responsibility do you take for the violence that we've seen at some of your recent rallies?
I do not go making and calling a 74-year-old woman a white slut. Now, this is not on.
That's what's happened at one of these meetings?
Yes, it has. And I was absolutely disgusted when I heard it, that a woman who was 74, when she came out from the breakfast meeting, was actually called a white slut. Her son came to her aid and he was also beaten.
Back in Ipswich, and after being dumped by the bull called One Nation, Councillor Paul Tully says that's what the voters of Oxley will do to Mrs Hanson.
She's become the Marco Polo of Ipswich. She's so well travelled we hardly ever see her in the seat of Oxley, and it really is having an effect. People are now saying, where is she? Why is she not fighting for the people of Oxley on grassroots issues?
I never forget the fact that it was the people of Oxley that put me into this position in the first place. They are my first and foremost duty to them and their needs, and I do that.
If the Prime Minister is watching today, is there anything you'd like to say to him now?
No.
Nothing at all?
No. One day if he really wants to sit down and listen to what Pauline Hanson, the woman, has got to say, and just not what the media have put across, I'd be very happy, because the voice of Australia really needs to be heard.
Chris Allen talking there with Pauline Hanson.